Mike Morse, otherwise known as Chris Hanson's personal friend and lawyer that's working on the Onision project, releases a video update about the order of protection that was slapped on both Repsion and Chris Hanson himself. Hi, I'm Tommy C, and this is Shot to the Point News. All right, before we get into this stuff, I know there's some controversy, and Mr. Morse is accused of some things, and currently we're in the process of looking into some of these allegations. I haven't come up with anything. I want to put that aside for this particular video. I want to give Mike Morse the benefit of the doubt. Certainly, he's been practicing law for some time. So don't look at him as the figure that's accused in this particular case, no matter how you might feel about the case, even if he's guilty. I mean, we're basically going over, because he is a mouthpiece for Chris Hanson currently, and we're going over his legal advice. And I think that's really important for the case going forward. Any particular problems with Mr. Morse can be covered at another time. We're just doing this right down the middle, and we're taking into consideration his legal advice. Now, what we're going over now is the order of protection that Onision slapped on Repsion and Mr. Chris Hanson, and we'll get into it right now. Here is Mr. Mike Morse.
And it is alleging that it was an emergency situation, which is interesting. And Mr. Jackson alleges that Mr. Hanson was a stalker, showed up at the house, making hateful and harassment type videos since August of 2019. Mr. Hanson never received notice of this or service of this, which is relevant in legal terms. It's just like a lawsuit or a subpoena. You must get official notice by a process server or someone in law enforcement, someone licensed to hand these over, just like a subpoena would be served or a lawsuit. So technically, there's legal argument that can be made that this hearing should not go forward. The lawyers on the ground will handle those objections if they need to come up. First thing that happens.
So I'm going to try to dumb it down for you a little bit. Since Chris Hanson was not served correctly, or at least that's what his lawyers claiming, that there is an argument that this thing shouldn't even be heard. That will be up to the judge whether he wants to hear it or not. That's the way stuff like that usually goes. So what they normally do is the plan A, get the whole thing thrown out and let it be done with, and then plan B will argue our side. So that's simply what's going on. If Mr. Hanson wasn't served correctly, if I had to guess, it's because Onision doesn't know what he's doing. That's just me. But I'm very surprised to hear that. And if that is grounds for dismissal, this thing will be over right there and then.
Has to happen is Mr. Jackson, as well as Kai, must show up at the courthouse today. These type of personal protection type orders require the petitioners, which is what they are, to show up in the courtroom and state their case. It's not enough to just do it on the paperwork. So first thing first, if they don't show up, it gets dismissed. There will be no argument. There will be no lawyers arguing with the other side or the judge. Secondly, Mr. Jackson.
It's interesting that they would say that, because I think that means they believe that there's a pretty good chance that Kai and Gregg won't show up. I just find that very interesting. So they don't show up, nothing happens. No order of protection is issued.
Jackson and Kai Jackson are representing themselves. It's called in pro se.
Hold on. Let's rewind a little bit.
Mr. Jackson and Kai Jackson are representing themselves. It's called in pro se. They filed this without an attorney, it appears.
Maybe that's the reason they didn't get served.
They signed it themselves, and they don't have an attorney. So they're handling this case on their own.
Yeah. You know what that means? They're broke. That's what this means. Look, as much as Onision says he's going to sue everybody, he simply doesn't have the funds to do it. He struck down this challenge. He struck down a video of mine. I got it back up. You know why? Because he doesn't have the funds to defend his fraudulent copyright claims. And he can still continue to do this today. He did it to Bobax recently. He made 2 copyright claims, and he won't go to court over them because he's broke. That's what it means. And, it's always wise to walk in a courtroom and go up against other lawyers when you have none. You know who came to that conclusion? Ted Bundy, he represented himself too. and here's the thing. Ted Bundy had a background in law, okay? So at least he had some grasp of process.
So Mr. Hanson, as well as Repsion, will have legal counsel there prepared to make the arguments. What I think is interesting is the definition of harassment and what will be at the center of this argument today. So I'm going to put that up here on the screen for you. But unlawful harassment means a knowing and willful course of conduct directed at a specific person which seriously alarms, annoys, or harasses, or is detrimental to such person and which serves no legitimate or lawful purpose. The course of conduct shall be such as would cause a reasonable person to suffer substantial emotional distress and shall actually cause substantial emotional distress to the petitioner, or when the course of conduct would cause a reasonable parent to fear for the well-being of their child.
All right, this is really interesting right here, what I've picked out so far. Or is detrimental to such person which serves no legitimate or lawful purpose. Journalism isn't lawful. Knocking on somebody's door isn't lawful. I mean, I would imagine, I'm not a judge, I'm not a lawyer, it could be thrown out on just on that. I mean, you can't. In order for Chris Hanson to be a harasser, he would have to be doing something that has no lawful purpose whatsoever. Certainly, journalism, which is protected by the First Amendment, is lawful itself. The other sentence I got in here that I thought was interesting, or when the course of conduct would cause reasonable parent to fear for the well-being of their child. Who's doing this? Chris Hanson. So if the judge is even mildly familiar with Chris Hanson, he did catch a predator. I mean, he spent the bulk of his career protecting children. This is comical. It's funny. I mean, boy, hey, James, Gregg, you better hope you don't have a fan in the court. I love that guy. He puts the bad guys in jail. I will let Mr. Morse go on.
So that's what the judge has to decide where the evidence lies. The standard of proof, which means the petitioners, Mr. Jackson and Kai Jackson, must prove beyond a preponderance of the evidence, more than 50%, that Mr. Hanson harassed them, as well as Repsion, that he has harassed them by the definitions I just showed you. We are pretty confident that when the judge hears the evidence, whether it be today or another day, that this judge, they go by commissioners in Washington, will not be able to find for the petitioners. We do not think the petitioners will have enough proof based on one knocking of the door, which was very civil, which is on tape. There was no yelling, no banging, no threatening. So we are not concerned about the legal ramifications of this, but we are taking it seriously.
There you go. And as far as the banging and knocking concerned, we heard the 911 call. We could hear the dog bark, but we couldn't hear Chris Hanson yelling mean things. While that's possible, it's very, very unlikely. I really hope you enjoyed today's Shot from the Point news. Right now, I'm working with somebody that has a person on the ground in Washington, and hopefully, no promises, I'll have a news video up as soon as possible, as soon as we find out exactly what went on over there. So here's what I'm going to do, guys. I'm going to stay up tonight for you. It's 9 o'clock. It's a little, about 20 after 9 Central European time. I love you guys so much, and I really, 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 really want to get this out to you. So I'll stay up tonight. I'll try to get the latest information. I got a nice little system here that gets me to upload and get you breaking news. Keemstar can't get you breaking news. Scares can't get you breaking news. Okay, rewind. I'm just saying that he can't get you breaking news the way I do to the way he does the news. I do it a little different. I do single subjects. Scares is great, and he shouted us out in our last video. Thank you, brother. Thank you so much. Then got us to 12K. No disrespect. That was stupid. I've developed the system where I can get you breaking news and give you the only exchange is you're gonna get some notifications. There you go. So I'm going to stay up tonight for you guys, and I appreciate everybody, the way they've been supporting this particular channel. We just hit 12K. Sky's the limit. and I'll see you around. Thank you very much. Tommy C, I'm out.